Welcome to What is Truth podcast, exploring truth with T. Hackinson, where we challenge propaganda and seek clarity in the current times. Let's dive in.
Well, hello, I'm T. Hackinson, and I did write this book called What is Truth. It has 12 different chapters in it that talk about different things such as, is hell actually eternal torment or is it actually eternal death? It has different topics such as the three heavens, which people will find very intriguing. It talks about the cause of all things, which is God, and different proofs for God. There's also the 11th chapter, I believe it is, and that's God's laws, and it talks about the 10 commandments and opens them up for review. Today I want to talk about something in the 4th chapter, which is called natural laws. And these are, these were all written down by me. They're not necessarily what everybody's in textbooks say. What are the 10 natural laws? Well, I came up with 10 things. And today I want to talk about the 8th law in the 4th chapter of natural laws. And it's called the uniqueness, dominion, and creativity of human beings. Now, God said in Genesis 1:26, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Therefore, humans were created, and humans are the gardeners and the caretakers of the earth. We are thinking humans. We're different than animals. Now, in this it says, God says, "Let us make mankind in our likeness." What does it mean, in our likeness? And God is talking about the Trinity of God. That's why God, who is one, is also three. He's a Trinity. There's God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. And if we think of a fire has the fire itself, it has the light, and it has the heat smoke. The heat smoke is not light. The fire is not light. But once you have the fire, you have all three. You have light, which is not heat and smoke. Light is different than the fire. The light is different than the smoke. But because you have fire, you have all three. So they're different entities, but they're one God. This is the Trinity of God. God is the fire. Jesus is the light of the world. And Holy Spirit is the smoke. And I've been thinking that it's, the heat smoke would actually be like the energy. And so this is what God meant when he said, "Let us create humankind in our likeness." It also could mean, some people would think, well, because Jesus came to earth and walked on two legs and looked like a human being, a human man, people might think, well, we're being made in the likeness of God because Jesus, looked like humans and we look like humans and we're made in the likeness of Jesus. Well, I think it's more of a likeness in that humans have the ability to think and create and plan for retirement, plan on blueprints, our homes. We don't just build homes, to live in like animals. Animals build beaver dams and then beaver homes that they live in, and they build bird nests, and they, have fox dens, but they don't plan them out on paper. They don't build hospitals. They build some place to survive, because that's what animals are doing. They're out there surviving. And so we are made in the image of God, in that we are creative beings that can think and plan and choose. We can choose right or wrong. We can't put a cobra on trial for biting a human being. It's just an animal. He doesn't think about what he's doing. He's just doing his thing, and this animal this human being crossed his path and the cobra bit him. Wow, we can't put him on trial for it. He's just doing his animal thing. And for the most part, animals just do their thing and leave us alone. Um, so that's how we are like God. And God gave an example even of the priorities between God and animals, in that in the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve disobeyed God and they ate of the tree of life, or the tree of knowledge of good and evil, I'm sorry, and and they disobeyed him. And and what they did was, all of a sudden they realized, wow, we're naked. And they felt shame and 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 guilt. And so they were trying to cover themselves and hide from God by covering themselves with fig leaves, which of course are not adequate. So God, who knew what they had done, came looking for them and said, "What have you done? And did you eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil?" And Adam said, "Yes. The woman gave me the fruit and I ate of it." So he's starting to blame Eve. So another problem is starting, blame. And Eve says, "Well, the serpent deceived me and I ate of the fruit." So she blames the serpent. So all of a sudden you've got disobedience leading to shame and guilt and nakedness and blame, all from this one act of disobedience. And they're trying to cover their nakedness with fig leaves, and God says that's not adequate to cover your shame, your guilt, and your nakedness. So what he did was he killed two innocent animals, and he used the skins of those animals to make clothes. People wear leather coats and that sort of thing. So I don't know if he slew, a cat, a cow, or I'm thinking it was a big sheep or a big goat or something, and then all of a sudden they had clothes that they could cover their nakedness with. So God showed the priority right there, that to take care of the human beings was more important than the lives of innocent animals. The animals aren't in the likeness of God. They don't care. Animals are different than humans in that they don't understand things like, you could explain to your cat or dog every day of your life saying, "I'm a student now and I'm going to school today and I'm going to be there all day." Or, "I go to my job every day and I go and work." You can't tell them where you're going, what you're going to do. They have no idea. All they know is that you're here for a while, you're gone for a while, and you're back for a while. That's all they know. You can try to explain to an animal forever and ever that, "I go to work every day." They don't know what you're talking about. And so they're they're different. They're not made in the likeness and the creative ability to think like God is. And so you can take, I know a rancher, and he lines up the cattle for slaughter, and then they lead them into this pen area or something, and one of the cows go up and they take, usually he said all they use is a 22 caliber, and they put it up to one point of their head and pop, and the cow falls over dead. The next cow in line is standing there going, "Oh." He doesn't care. He doesn't know what's going on. He's not afraid, except maybe a startle of the gun if it's loud. But my rancher friend says they don't even startle from the gun. They walk up, "Oh, my turn." Whatever. They don't care. They don't understand. They're not made in the image of God. Animals don't plan for the retirement. Some people can say, well, they gather acorns and stuff for the winter, and they gather things to hibernate and stuff. That's not a plan. That's instincts. They know, just like trees losing their leaves in the fall, that winter's coming, and it's time to prepare for it. Animals really don't have rights, except rights that humans confer upon them. They don't get together and say, "Hey, we're cows and we don't want to be slaughtered anymore." Uh, no, but they have rights of not being tortured. But those rights are given to them by human beings. Human beings who are decent and not sadists who torture animals say, no, don't torture that animal. That's the rights that animals have. They're conferred to them by human beings. They don't have committees that saying, you got to give us food here. We're wild foxes and you got to feed us. No, they get fed by me, my pet foxes, because I choose to do that. They don't come up and say, give us food. We've signed a petition. So we know that there's huge differences. Now, there are people who are on different extremes, people who torture animals. They're reprehensible people. These are sadists and they're evil people. But then they're on the other side of extreme who think that animals have the same rights as humans and who think that we evolved from animals and so we're no different than them. And these people, for example, PETA, people eating tasty animals. No, that's not it. People for the ethical treatment of animals. There's people who, they have these advertisements on TV and they show these emaciated, uncared for animals shaking and, all disheveled and falling apart. And they say, oh, we got to take care of these animals. No, put the animal down. The most humane thing to do to that animal is to put it to sleep. And so, there's big differences of liberal people and so many of these big cities that have these bleeding heart liberals who want to save animals at any cost. And they say, well, animals make tools, and a gorilla peels the bark off of a twig and sticks it into a termite or ant hill and pulls it out, and you got ants and termites, and oh boy, isn't that good? Well, that's a tool. No, that's a tool like a 5/16 Stanley wrench. It's not even close to it. They're using a stick to eat termites, and that's another thing about animals. What humans want to eat termites and ants. Only animals would. So, there's different states that when their animal gets sick and old, I've got two 15-year-old cats. When they're going to get sick, because in cat years, I figure they're 75 years old, and pretty soon they're going to have issues. And if it's some serious issue like cancer, I'm not going to invest tens of thousands of dollars or thousands of dollars in fixing them. I'm going to put the cat down because the cat doesn't care. The cat gets a nice, humane shot and it goes to sleep. It doesn't even know what's happening. It doesn't care. It's the most humane thing to stop the cat from suffering. And so in many of these states like Montana, for example, and so many of the red states, which really they all are, except for the blue focal points of huge cities, most of the people are conservative. When that dog gets sick, don't spend thousands of dollars. Put the dog down and re-dog. And if I want to get more cats, if I have to put my cats down, I'll have to re-cat. I'm not gonna, because when I clean my house, I realize that 85% of the filth and the hair and everything else and the stuff from the cat box all over the place is from my animals, because I'm living with animals in my house. And I love my animals, but they're sure a lot of work. Yesterday I had to clean one of them had thrown up on my bed. And then, so I had to wash everything again. It happens every once in a while. And then I come back later, and a little while later, oh, he's climbed underneath, not between the blanket and my sheets, but between my sheets where I'm sleeping. I'm saying, why can't you stay on top of the bed? Oh, you got to be underneath the covers where I'm sleeping. So I got to take one of those, sticky paper things and get all the fur off because they shed, and I don't want to sleep in a bunch of cat fur. So anyway, and I love my cats. So my dad was a retired civil engineer, and people who work their whole lives don't want to sit around watching, let's say, Wheel of Fortune or sitcoms or something all day long. He wants to do something. So he decided to drive school bus. And one day he was sitting in the coffee shop of the bus station and having coffee with a guy. And the guy said, yeah, my wife brought the cat Now, this was 15 years ago where money was a different value. He says, my wife brought the cat in, and now I got a $3,000 veterinarian bill. Today would be what, $5,000, $6,000. And my dad said to him, well, congratulations. You'll be driving a school bus for the next 3 months paying for it. And so, and I am, I know people love their animals, certain people, and they'll put all the money they want into it. And I say, go for it. As long as I don't have to pay your $3,000 cat bill, I don't care how you spend your money. If you want to try to get your animal to live to 20 years old, all the more power to you. Just don't use my money doing it. And so, um, people who do want to spend their money like that on their animals, that's their choice. It's none of my business if I'm not paying for it. Do whatever you want to do. Now, I drew up something mostly for my guidance, is that we have a demarcation between thinking beings and unthinking. And people can say, well, animals think, but I'm talking about being able to choose right or wrong, planning, that sort of thing. And thinking human beings and beings start with God. God is the highest in the order of all things. Second is our angels. And then there is humans. And the angels, I say they're second because Psalm 8, 4 through 5 says, who is humankind? What are mankind made a little lower than angels? So angels are second in the order, and then humans are next. In 1 Corinthians 6:3, though, it says, don't you know that we will judge angels? And there's going to be coming time in the millennium when the demons, the angels, will be judged by humans, and they will be found guilty, of course, and thrown into hell, which is eternal death, even for them. Death, not eternal torture. And then there's a line of demarcation that separates thinking beings, God, angels, and humans, and to animals and insects. These are all of a sudden different living beings. They're not thinking beings. They live instinctually. And then after them, after animals and insects, there's trees and plants and living organisms, living cells and that sort of thing. So there's a demarcation between thinking beings, God, angels, and humans, and animals and insects and trees and plants. They're all living things, but the top three categories are able to think and create and plan and choose to do right or wrong. There's a line of demarcation between animals and humans. Now, just as there is a line of demarcation between animals and humans, there is also a line being drawn in what I call these last years of our life, of our existence. I believe very much in Isaiah 51:6, I believe it is, says, look at the heavens above, and look at the earth below. The heavens above will all vanish like smoke, and the earth will wear out like an old garment. Our world is running down. Entropy is running it down. And I do believe these are the last, I want to just say decade of existence. And just like the line of demarcation between thinking humans and unthinking animals, there's a line being drawn between types of people. Just as I don't want to pay somebody's $3,000 cat bill, I also don't want to fund universities who are actively racist. Harvard is just one example of most of the colleges, and they receive $53 billion in endowments and grants, and $53 billion to pay for overpaid professors who are underworked and overpaid. And this university allows racism. What is that racism? It's having groups harassing Jewish students, The Jews are an ethnicity, just like blacks are, Hispanics are. The Jews are the smallest minority, and these universities allow students to harass them and to hurt them. And and just like I don't want my money paying for a $3,000 cat bill of somebody, I don't want my money going to a grant that government money is paying a racist university to harass a minority group of Jews. You know, I'm they've got all these people say, "Oh, I identify as a girl or a boy or a unicorn or whatever." Well, I identify as a Jew. That's how I identify. If I have to play their game of how they identify, I identify as a Jew. And my side is on the Jews. My side is for defending them and allowing them to go to class and study and not be harassed by racists on their campus. And, you know, these universities like Columbia and Harvard and Berkeley, and you could just name them, almost all of them, except for good universities like Hillsdale College, which is a good, God-fearing university. But most of the universities teach godlessness. They teach that everything began from nothing through the Big Bang, and that everything evolved into, from a single-celled organism to human beings. They teach these godless theories. These aren't theories. These are opinions. And I say there's more valid to believe that God exists. You need to teach creationism and teach intelligent design also. And I don't want my tax dollars going to racist universities that also teach godlessness. Another example I want to give is that, you can have Easter dinner or Thanksgiving dinner or whatever, and invite some friends over. And everybody comes over and has a good time and watches a football game or whatever they're going to do. And then they go home. But there's a big difference between inviting people over and people who break into your house and take over your bedrooms and your food. Those are people who are breaking and entering into your house. The past administration in the U.S. of Biden and his cohorts have allowed millions of people to break into our house, not just United States, but Canada, Germany, England, France. They've allowed, but Biden has allowed millions of people to break into our home. And he's even flown over 500,000 people on flights directly from Haiti and other countries right into our country. And they say, and they're put on welfare. They're housed in 5-star hotels. If I'm a paying guest in one of those hundreds of dollars a night hotels living with a bunch of illegal immigrants, I'm going to say, I'm not staying in this hotel. I don't know who these people are and what they're going to do. And so Biden took an oath and he swore to protect the Constitution and the borders of our country and the citizens of our nation. And I say he broke that oath. I would like to see him put on trial, except, why do you put a brain dead person on trial? And I'm not putting down old people. I'm putting down this particular old person who they said was coherent when he wasn't. And I want to say, who was running this country? Was it Jake Sullivan and Susan Rice and the Obamas and the Clintons and all the godless people? And if they've signed pardons with auto pen, I say this president didn't sign that, and they are invalid. These people are not pardoned. They're pardoned by what? Jake Sullivan, who was national advisor to, in some degree, to Biden. Now, these people who came into our countries were unvetted. They were flown in or they broke in across the borders. Now, they want due process to get them out. And I say, these people aren't United States citizens or Canadian citizens or German citizens. And in the United States, if you're a citizen, you have constitutional rights. But if you broke into the country, you are not a citizen and you do not have constitutional rights. If you were let in unvetted and we don't know who you are, and if you're a member of gangs or anything else, then why do we have to go through a process of putting you through court hearings and all this stuff to get you out. You came in unvetted, you leave unvetted. And because somebody figured it out, if with something like 185,000 or something people being put on, going before courts to see if they can stay in the country or not, it would take almost 30 years to get all these illegal immigrants out at that pace. It took 4 years to get them all in, and they were all unvetted. So all of a sudden, well, we don't care about if they're not vetted coming in, but they have to have due process going out. And you know, this is not even logical. This is not common sense, but this, by the way, is how the Democrats are. Because the Democrat Party, the liberals, the progressives are anti-American, anti-freedom, and they're for anything that's godless. And so I want to say, just like, well, years ago, there was some comedian, I never really watched him much, but his name was Jeff Foxworthy. And he said, you're a redneck if, and then he gave some examples, like if you put all your furniture out in the front yard and clean the house, and maybe not even bring some of it back in. You're a redneck if you do these kind of things. Well, I want to say there's a line of demarcation. Just like animals are different than humans, there's a line people need to choose in these years. You're on the wrong side of the line when you support illegal immigrants, especially criminal ones. And this latest example, this Abrego Garcia, he's been found by 2 immigration courts as being an MS-13 member. He was arrested in a group of MS-13 members. He was wearing their colors. He's got the tattoos that say MS-13. And his wife has gone to the court twice because he beats her up. And then he was pulled over in Tennessee transporting illegals from Texas who had come across the border illegally, transporting them to Maryland. And you've got the Democrats who are saying, oh, this is not due process and all this stuff. Hey, he's an El Salvador native. He's not a resident of the United States. He's not a citizen. And they're on the wrong side of the line on this issue. And 90% of the people living in the country agree, and they want him out. This is why Trump was elected president, to get these criminals out of our country. But the Democrats are defending them. You're on the wrong side of the line if you're defending lawlessness and MS-13 gangbangers and people who beat up their wife and enter our country illegally. You're on the wrong side of the line if you fail to empathize with even one recent example, this mother of a 37-year-old woman who was murdered by an illegal alien. This woman was beat and raped. The guy threw her against a tunnel wall, and you could see the blood outline of her body on the wall. This is what the mother told us. And the senator for Maryland is down in El Salvador sympathizing for an illegal gangbanger, wife beater, but there's no empathy for the mother of this woman who was murdered by an illegal immigrant criminal. No, they're on the side. You're on the wrong side of the law when you're defending the illegal wife beating gangbanger, and you're not defending the woman who lost her daughter, who was the mother of 5 children. You're on the wrong side of the line. And these people accuse Trump and MAGA of being Hitler and Nazis. It's not Trump and MAGA people who are on the campuses saying, push the Jews from the river to the sea, death to Israel, death to America. You are the Nazis. You are the ones who are discriminated against the Jews. You are the Hitlerites. And everything you say about what good people are is your projections of what you actually are. And you're on the wrong side of the law, of the line. You're on the wrong side of the line if you push godless theories that everything began from nothing because they don't believe in God. You're on the wrong side of the line. You're on the wrong side of the line if you support abortion at all costs. There's a party who is for life and there's a party who's for death. You're on the wrong side of the line if you support homosexuality, of male homosexuality, because anal sex is killing them. They are poisoning each other by pushing feces up into their bloodstreams through the anus. They get gay ball syndrome, they get monkeypox, they get HIV, and they die of AIDS. So the party of death is for all abortions possible and for letting people have perverse lifestyles that's killing them. You're on the wrong side of the line if you support that. I had a doctor once who it was the last time I saw him, by the way, who somehow in the conversation it came up that I said, I saw something on Fox News Channel, and it's not your local affiliate Fox stations because they're just like the local stations, but Fox News Channel. And he said, "Oh, poison." And that was the last time I saw that doctor. I'm not going to go to a doctor who's this blind. You're on the wrong side of the line if you're eating every day. If you're watching MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, who'd I miss? CBS, reads LA Times, Washington Post, Minneapolis Star Tribune, and you're on the wrong side of the line. And I want to invite people, come to the truth. Come to the God side. Come to the God of creation. Leave the side of the devil and destruction. Come to life. Leave the death. Quit taking your poison. Open your eyes and watch Newsmax and Fox News Channel and different things like that, like OAN, One American News, and Real America's Voice, and that sort of thing. Watch these good shows. There's many podcasts, people telling truth. Come to the side of truth. You're a thinking human being, and God values you above animals. Do you want to live for eternity? Join the side of God. And so I thank you for your time, for listening. I always say this, may God bless and keep you and yours. Thank you.